Story 1. Captain Holt put on his pigeon head and said, "Let's go blow some tiny minds. Rest in peace, Andre Braugher. You brought so much light into the world." Story 2. In Malcolm in the Middle, the kids visit their older brother at a dude ranch in Arizona. They are upset that Francis is now responsible. So they set up fireworks. While Francis is scolding them and telling them to grow up, he subconsciously reaches for a lighter and ignites the fireworks. When the final fireworks go off, there's a wide shot. It's nighttime, the fireworks explode, and then it briefly turns to daytime before cutting back to nighttime. All four boys are standing there, and Francis asks, "How long until our vision comes back?" One of them replies, "Bach said 3 days." They start looking for things to hold on to in order to find their way back to the ranch. It gets me every time. Story 3. Toss-up between a few different Dave Chappelle moments. The first that popped into my head was, is Wayne Brady going to have to choke a person? Story 4. There's no way I could remember my favorite, but the one that immediately comes to mind is the part about being disabled from the IT crowd. Story 5. WKRP turkey drop. Story 6. IT crowd work outing. The entire episode is great, but probably the best moment is when Jen turns to order a drink and Moss is the bartender. Story 7. Cheers. Cliff Claiborne on Jeopardy, where the categories are postage stamps, beer, men who live with their mothers, and others. Story 8. What do you think? I go around just slapping people? Come on, I have a little bit more sense than that. Remember when I slapped Charlie Murphy upside the head? Rick James, Chappelle Show. Story 9. The scene in Season 1 of Silicon Valley, where they discuss middle out while entertaining the audience, feels like the writers crafted the entire show to build up to that moment. I don't know if I've ever laughed at a television show harder than that. Story 10. I have many memorable moments, but the first one that comes to mind is from Parks and Recreation, when the characters get drunk on snake juice. Ron Swanson dancing gets me every time. Story 11. I will always have a soft spot for Jim's driving test on Taxi. Story 12. Always Sunny in Philadelphia, when Mac and Charlie confront the kids who stole their bikes. I hadn't laughed that hard at something since the cheese on the taco rant when I saw me, myself, and Irene in theaters. When Charlie charges and tackles one of them into the side of a car, I was red-faced with laughter. Story 13. It has to be the Chappelle Show skit where he is the leader of the Ku Klux Klan and does not realize he is black. Clayton Bigsby, the black white supremacist. Story 14. Dairy Girls is a brilliant series. I can't provide proper context without giving away too much, but for those who have watched it, the scene between Uncle Colm and Liam Neeson's police inspector had me in tears, and I'm not usually one to laugh out loud. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend giving it a watch. Story 15. In a scene from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Andy Samberg tells the 5 prisoners to sing their rendition of "I Want It That Way" to catch the murderer. He forgets why he told them to do this and says, "Gave me chills." Story 16. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia because of the implication. Story 17. In How I Met Your Mother, when Marshall claims that the one miracle he has seen was when they were bored out of their minds at the pub, he threw a pen at the ceiling. It later fell back, bounced on the table, and lodged in his nostril. The absurdity of that situation was fetchon funny. Story 18. I haven't wanted to watch South Park in years, but the scene in the first episode where Kyle goes on a lengthy, bleeped-out cursing fit always makes me laugh until I cry. Story 19. Kramer loses the contest immediately and says, "I'm out." Story 20. The golf ball story in the marine biologist episode of Seinfeld is the perfect joke with an absolutely flawless setup. The pause when George pulls out the golf ball, Elaine and Jerry with their mouths open, and the camera panning to Kramer creates a long pause before Kramer asks, "What is that? A titleist?" It is the funniest single scene in television history. Story 21. The first thing that came to mind was the scene from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, when Will and Carlton are dancing to Apache, and Will throws Carlton into the audience, resulting in the classic cut to an obvious dummy being launched. It is absolutely hilarious. Story 22. Murph, it's Dan Quayle. Tomorrow, he'll get his head stuck in his golf bag, and people will forget all about you. Story 23. It's always sunny in Philadelphia when Charlie and Mac lock eyes from across the restaurant. It's such a perfect moment. Runner-up is I Think You Should Leave when they're in court and they do the focus to reveal Tim's hat. Cinema. Story 24. I never really thought about it being a favorite, but the one that popped into my head was when I was a kid and first discovered Penn and Teller. They performed a bit in a special, I believe in Aspen, where Penn came out restrained in a contraption, and Teller proceeded to abuse and torture him while Penn was speaking to the audience. The climax was when Teller cut off Penn's hand, and Penn tried to finish his speech while losing all of his blood. Obviously, it was all fake because they are magicians. This performance really burned its place in my memory. When I was even younger, I was obsessed with magic, and it all came flooding back. I became a fan of theirs for life. Story 25. The Mole Man is destroying Tiny Town in Arrested Development. It has been carefully set up for the entire episode, and then it all pays off in the most absurd way. Story 26. How do you catch a cricket? With a giant bird. Jump cut to Sweet D. Reynolds eating her sandwich like a giant ravenous bird. Story 27. A bit more of a niche show now, but Corner Gas had an episode where they wanted to create a tourist attraction for the town's claim to fame. After a town committee meeting, they decided to celebrate the town's farming history by making the world's biggest hoe. The whole episode makes me laugh every time. Story 28. The chandelier scene from Only Fools and Horses is the simplest of gags, but it is executed perfectly. Story 29. What does yellow light mean? I saw it as it aired, and it was spectacular. Story 30. Darren, if you had told me 25 years ago that someday I would be standing here about to solve the world's energy problems, I would have said you were crazy. Now let's push this giant ball of oil out the window. Story 31. You know that British sitcom, The Young Ones? My favorite bit ever is from the episode, Sick. What's this fish doing in my bed? You can find it on a video platform, but it's been edited down to only the parts where Mike walks in with or without the fish. That ruins the frenetic, chaotic circumstances that make his scene so funny. Here are the other three arguing and throwing things when Mike walks in asking about the fish in his bed. Just watch the episode. Story 32. In Married with Children, when Kelly Bundy couldn't answer a game show's final question, she forgot that Al scored 4 touchdowns in a single game. The host then cued the audience, and they collectively screamed out, Al Bundy. Story 33. In It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia Christmas special, a naked Frank Reynolds emerges from a couch where he has been hiding, much to the horror of the crowd. I call this scene Frank's birth. Story 34. I will never forget when that cute little dog in his costume opens a bedroom door and says, "Where are my testicles, Summer?" Story 35. That 70s show features a scene where Eric gets a tattoo and tries to impress Donna by kicking down her bedroom door, only to fall flat on his back. Story 36. There is an Australian show called Fisk. In the first episode, the main character is at a job interview wearing a brown outfit that matches the chair she is sitting in. A man comes in and sits on her because he doesn't see her. I have watched that episode just for that moment because it makes me laugh so hard. The lady asks her, "Why do you always wear the same clothes?" Fisk replies, "I have 5 of the exact same brown outfit, so I don't have to think about what to wear. Einstein used to do it." Great idea. Huh. The woman responds, "Is it?" Story 37. The lie detector scene from Better Off Ted. I have to go back upstairs and put some more negativity into the world. Story 38. For once, Nigel Hawthorne isn't giving the speech. Story 39. Any final 2 minutes of an episode of The League features a standout moment where a man in a wheelchair finds Pete wearing his stolen shoes. He tries to chase Pete and ends up getting hit by Kevin's runaway piano as it plays Pick a Bale o' Cotton. The sheer absurdity of that sequence increases every 10 seconds. Story 40. Reno 911 is a show where Junior mistakenly believes he is raiding a sex trafficking house, but it turns out to be just a daycare. The force and aggression he displays when he enters is hilarious. Story 41. Our episode of Cops is on. My name is Earl. Cameraman, are you going to kill me? Earl, I wasn't planning on it, but I also wasn't planning on stealing a police car either. We'll just say we'll see how it goes. Cameraman, oh God. Story 42, Tom Green Show, The Slut Mobile, and Where's My Dinner Statue? Tom's later mainstream Hollywood success never resonated with me like those early years on MTV. Story 43, Cheers. Carla made a biting comment about Woody being superstitious, and Woody pointed out her habit of rubbing the Indian statue by the door for luck. However, he was the one who appeared foolish. This left Carla, one of the few times on the show, without any snarky comeback, showcasing Woody's uncharacteristically good wit. Story 44. It turned into one of the Bluth family's better parties. Story 45. The scene in Arrested Development, when Michael's wedding gets called off and the bride walks away, seemingly on water. Michael, is this another one of your magic tricks, Job? Job, completely seriously, no, Michael. It's another one of my illusions. Story 46. The final scene of the Bob Newhart show is set in New Hampshire. He wakes up next to his wife from the previous Bob Newhart series, and it was all a dream. It was like a 10-year setup for one really great gag. Story 47. In the scene from Malcolm in the Middle, Hal's family intentionally insults Lois and excludes her from the family picture. In response, her 4 sons take the golf cart and drive it straight through the fancy buffet table and into the pool. Honestly, this question could be addressed solely with examples from Malcolm in the Middle, and I could provide numerous different answers. Story 48. How I Met Your Mother. For the longest time a cappella. I have no idea why, but whenever I think of this show, this is the moment I remember the most. Also, the crazy hot scale. Story 49. My name is Earl. People who make meth shouldn't use meth. It's always the second batch that explodes. Story 50. Mary Tyler Moore Show. Lou makes Mary work over the weekend to update the obituary file. Rhoda helps Mary work from home, and they have fun. Raquel Welch is the topic. Did not drown is the canned text they come up with, resulting in hilarious laughter. They continue with more. Ted reads one on the air. Mary gets in trouble, but Lou does not fire her. Story 51. I feel a mix of emotions every time I watch Sal give the best man speech in Impractical Jokers. Story 52. Limmy's The Wrong Way Down a One-Way Street. My friends and I quote Limmy regularly. Story 53. Honestly, the outtakes from the Cannonball Run movie were 10 times funnier than the movie itself. Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise, Frank Sinatra, and Sammy Davis Jr. would make for a great 90 minutes of just those guys cracking each other up. Story 54. I go to Yuck Yucks regularly when I can in my city. One time, I attended the new talent showcase, and the special guest was Craig Robinson. He was sensational and captivated the audience. Many might know him from The Office. It didn't fully register to me until that day that he's not just an actor but also a famous comedian. My friends and I had the honor of sharing a room with him unexpectedly. He got a lot of the audience singing as well. It was a truly special show. Story 55. Ty, both from the same episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. When Jake refers to the Fellowship of the Key, Boyle stiffly turns and locks eyes. I seriously think you are the greatest person who has ever lived. Or, ugh, what happened? You bumped your head on the doorway and knocked yourself out cold. Do I have a bruise? A small one. I'm going on the Wall of Heroes. Story 56. Mr. Show Bob's Milk Machine song at the end of the joke. The musical. Story 57. For me, it has to be John Cleese slowly being tricked into singing The Impossible Dream on The Muppet Show. Story 58. For me, it's got to be John Cleese slowly being tricked into singing The Impossible Dream on The Muppet Show. Story 59. In Extras, there is a scene where Ricky Gervais's character is trying to chat up a girl, and he accidentally shakes a bottle of sparkling water, which explodes all over the place when he opens it. Ricky's attempt starts at 2:30, where he tries to imitate the smooth attempt by another actor at the beginning of the clip. The first time I saw this was probably the hardest I've ever laughed while watching a show. Story 60. The moment in Arrested Development, when Gob and Lindsay mock Michael by calling him a chicken, is truly unforgettable. Their exaggerated imitation is so ridiculous that I can't help but laugh out loud every time. In The Office US version, Dwight tells Michael a knock-knock joke. It goes something like this: Dwight, knock knock. Michael, who's there? Dwight, KGB. Michael, KGBWH? Dwight slaps Michael and says, "We will ask the questions." It's hilarious. Story 61. Tim Conway, Siamese Elephants. Epic. Red Foreman, when he comes up with the dumbass routine, says, "It is like he is both foolish and ignorant." A bright light shines from above, accompanied by an angelic choir. Dumbass. Story 62. Russell Howard performing a complete cover of Vanilla Ice while also doing an impression of the Queen is certainly noteworthy. Story 63. Jack Donaghy's role-play counseling session with Tracy Jordan. Story 64. One of Two. Bud Light commercial with Wyatt Cenac. Jon Stewart Thank You Choir. Homeland Security brief on Saturday Night Live featuring Robert De Niro. Story 65. 1939, so I could be a fly on the wall and see my grandparents as children. I'd like to witness their interactions with their siblings and their own parents. I love my grandparents so much. Story 66. Very few people know or remember the show from the 1980s or 1990s called I Married Dora, where a widowed father marries the housekeeper so she can obtain a green card. In the last episode, he gets a job overseas and is at the airport when they realize they love each other. She wants him to stay, but he leaves anyway. Then he reappears and says, "It was canceled." Dora asks, "The flight?" And he replies, "No, the show." They all face the camera and wave goodbye. 10-year-old me thought that was hilarious. Story 67. It's incredibly funny and made me laugh until I cried. The part in New Girl where Nick says, "I got you a cookie, you gave me a cookie." I don't know what it was, but just the way he said it killed me. I went back to watch it again, and it made me laugh until I couldn't breathe. Runners up. Ross and the leather pants when he put lotion on to try and get them off and his date walked in. The fire Marshall Bill skits from In Living Color used to crack me up. Story 68. My personal favorite is 100 Different Things from Taskmaster. The one that hooked me was Get This Potato in the Golf Hole. Another favorite is Make an Exotic Sandwich, specifically Mel Giedroyc's bit. Actually, my favorite task is the last pre-recorded task of Series 7, Episode 10. I don't want to spoil it. Just watch the whole episode. A runner-up is Sabotage Your Team, but you need to be familiar with the contestants from that series for it to have its full comedic impact. Complete 7 Tasks is also a favorite, featuring absolute chaos. I could just list task after task. There are so many good ones. Story 69. One of my all-time favorite comedy show moments is from The Office, when Jim impersonates Dwight. The whole Bears beats Battlestar Galactica scene never fails to make me laugh. Story 70. That 70s show Leo talking about the time he saw a UFO. Story 71. Kind of my favorite, but also the hardest to watch. Nathan Barley Dan Ashcroft's interview with The Weeknd on Sunday. Story 72. Anything with Phoebe Buffry in it would crack me up, especially when she sang with Ross. You know the song Sing Along. He. Also, Fez on that 70s show when he was singing in Red's shower. But Kitty, he was in my shower, he saw my legs. And he saw Pip. Of course, I cannot mention Fez without his iconic scene. America. America. Story 73. Steve Martin on Johnny Carson. I don't have to leave. Story 74. I don't know if I have a favorite since there are so many I really enjoy, but the 2 that came to mind just now are Brooklyn Nine-Nine's I Want It That Way, Cold Open, and The Good Place's Jason Figured It Out, although the second clip works best if you know the context. Story 75. New Girl Popcorn Machine. Miscommunications are entertaining. Nick and Jess are debating. Nick is discussing not getting a popcorn machine while Jess thinks they are talking about the possibility of Nick dating Cece. Story 76. The Backstreet Boys opener to Brooklyn Nine-Nine makes me laugh every single time I watch it. I never get tired of it. Story 77. In Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, John Bernthal, serious as ever, explains that he can't see Titus anymore after witnessing him eat an entire jar of mayonnaise, mistake his toe for a piece of candy, reach down to eat it, fall over, and then not be able to get back up. I don't think I've ever laughed more at a single joke in my life. Story 78. When Pam has an art show and hardly anyone attends, only Oscar and his date show up to criticize her artwork. Then, Michael arrives and expresses genuine interest, leading Pam to hug him. Story 79. It's a series of moments in Arrested Development when everyone is surprised that George Michael likes Anne. I laugh every time someone says, her, or when Michael calls her egg. Story 80. Brian's hat. I honestly had to beg my wife to turn it off. I couldn't breathe, and I am not proud of it, but I admit I peed a little. No, wait. I am proud of that. Story 81. King of the Hill. When Boomhauer is recalling events in his memory flashback, the rest of the cast speaks like him, but he speaks clear English. Story 82. During the London 2012 Paralympics, the nation became more aware of disability and recognized the competitors for the incredible athletes they were, rather than seeing the condition or the missing limb. The often controversial Channel 4 titled their late-night Paralympics-themed comedy show, The Last Leg. This was edgy enough to elicit gasps and remarks of disbelief about the title, but also wonderfully summarized the new relationship the country was forming with disability. Once we recognized the person, we could laugh with them as they made jokes about their disability. It was a cultural high point perfectly pitched for the spirit of the time. Story 83. Liam Neeson on Life's Too Short. He wants to do improvisational comedy. Maybe discussing serious topics is a bit too heavy for a comedy sketch. Story 84. Frasier. Oh, I'm sorry, was I snippy? I didn't realize it was too much to ask that there not be gunplay in my living room. Story 85. Fry buried the 7-leaf clover back in his nephew's grave. Here lies Philip J. Fry, named after his uncle to carry on his spirit. Story 86. In the episode The Injury from The Office, Michael Scott burns his foot while using a George Foreman grill to cook bacon in bed. He then pretends to be disabled to gain attention. Story 87. When Father Ted is in the living room with Dougal, he puts a lampshade on his head and makes a poor impression of a Chinese person. He then looks out the window and sees a Chinese family staring in at him. Story 88. The absurd montage in the League of Gentlemen TV show involves a situation where a well-off, attractive woman opens a legitimate massage parlor, giving the impression that she will be providing the massages. However, since she is not skilled at it, she hires an unattractive man who is very good at massage therapy. The clients are blindfolded with spa covers over their eyes while on the table. She begins the massage and then plays a previous recording of her voice before leaving, allowing the man to provide the massages. The man finds himself in a position where he must perform a handjob for an older client, as the operation would be revealed otherwise. News spreads among older patrons, leading to a constant stream of clients seeking happy endings, and the parlor begins to make a significant profit. The episode is called Beauty and the Beast, I believe. Story 89. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia features a dance at the reunion that cuts to reality. Trailer Park Boys showcases a scene where Collins gets gut-punched and belches. Curb Your Enthusiasm stars Kevin Farley as an exterminator who mistakes a small dog for a rat. I Think You Should Leave includes a scene with a monster using the dog door. In The Office, I enjoy watching Michael and Holly. Story 90. Malcolm in the Middle. Hal unintentionally teaches life lessons to a group of bodybuilders who begin to follow him and tow his car around like huskies pulling a sled. Story 91. Del Boy trying to play it cool in the bar in Only Fools and Horses. Story 92. Community. The episode with the secret trampoline. When Pierce discovers it, he blackmails the others into breaking one of the cardinal rules. No double bouncing. With the double bouncing, Pierce launches into the sky and crash lands into a dumpster. It's not just hilarious because of how it looks. I disliked Pierce, so it brought me joy to see him get injured. Story 93. The Carol Burnett Show featured a memorable sketch where Tim Conway played a dentist and Harvey Korman portrayed the patient. It is one of the funniest scenes of all time. Story 94. Malcolm in the Middle. Lois's two-car demolition derby with that woman. Later in the same episode, Craig is silenced about a tape by the boys in hell. Story 95. It's such a small thing, but when the reporter calls Nander the relentless Nander de Laurentiis, I just want to hug the person who wrote that. What We Do in the Shadows. Story 96. There was a very under-the-radar show on Comedy Central called Review. It starred Andy Daly, who I had never really paid much attention to, but this show was stellar and he's very funny in it. It had the good sense to cast Fred Willard in a major role, and he's one of the funniest guys ever. His last scene in the show had me howling. I don't want to spoil it, and the comedy won't really translate if I just type it out. But if you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about, and if you haven't seen it, you ought to. Staying on the same network, Nathan For You had some legendary moments, but none top Grandsons P. My favorite sketch comedy show ever, Upright Citizens Brigade, often gets brought up for the Ass Pennies bit, but that show had a lot more to offer. Kick my ass and take a crap on me, kid. Shut up, kid. Lunatic, The Hot Chicks Room, and so much more. Story 97. Joe falls off the medicine ball on Impractical Jokers. The reactions of the other guys take it to the next level. Story 98. I Can't Play Stoned. There's a sketch from the 1980s where several cast members, including Andy Kaufman, have to perform a scene at a restaurant. One by one, they go to the bathroom and smoke a joint. Kaufman decides in the middle of the scene that he thinks it's stupid and humiliating, so he refuses to continue and then becomes physical with Michael Richards, followed by the crew. It was far funnier than whatever the actual scene was supposed to be, and it helped the show, which was facing cancellation, secure a second season. Story 99. Brooklyn Nine-Nine. The scene when Jake gets the suspects to sing, I Want It That Way, is pure gold. Story 100. That scene in Superbad when McLovin gets his fake ID and proudly picks the name McLovin as if it's the most normal thing ever. Story 101. Peep Show Jez Forgets the Turkey. Mark demonstrates how boiling emotions can sometimes feel. They come quickly and disappear just as fast, leaving a terrible feeling in the moment and even worse afterwards when you realize they were disproportionate. Even if you didn't act on those emotions. Feels all too real. Story 102. Community's Darkest Timeline episode features characters rolling the dice and creating multiple chaotic timelines, with Evil Troy and Evil Abed remaining prominent throughout. Story 103. When Ronan Dex tells TLC, you said that a lot. What? Indeed. Really? I did not notice. Story 104. C-Lab 2021. The moment when Bizarro Quinn says, I'm helping, is comedic perfection. It is a quote I have used whenever I am being foolish or unhelpful for almost 2 decades now. Story 105. That scene in Dumb and Dumber when Lloyd trades the van for a mini bike is truly memorable. The dedication to absurdity is inspiring. Story 106. Dana Carvey's show in the 1990s featured a Wizard of Oz segment where Dana played Dennis Blanchard, who needed to ask the wizard for assistance. Stephen Colbert and Steve Carell portrayed the Scarecrow and the Tin Man. It was short but hilarious. Story 107. Anytime a character makes a subtle fourth-wall-breaking joke, and half the audience does not even notice. Story 108. It's always sunny when Mac and Charlie are at Mac's uncle's house. His uncle clearly wants to become a father figure to Mac, but Mac doesn't see it. Charlie gets frustrated, saying, I can't believe this. This is all you've ever wanted, and you're just going to walk away. I don't know why it affects me so much. Story 109. Uncle Colm is sitting next to Sister Michael at a wake in Dairy Girls. Colm, I don't mind a bit of a breeze. In fact, I prefer it. But that wind was aggressive. I said to myself, Colm, this is no day for a... Sister Michael. What's happening? Colm. When the bride arrived, and by this stage the wind was fierce. Sister Michael. Am I dead? Colm. I've never heard wind like it. Sister Michael. Is this my wake? Colm. howling like a banshee. It was, Sister Michael, am I in hell? Calm. So, the poor girl, the bride, arrives, and isn't she no sooner out of the car than she's lifted up in the air like a paper doll and blown into a flower bed. Sister Michael. That's actually quite funny. Story 110. Joey walks in as Chandler and Rachel are eating cheesecake off the floor. He pulls a random fork out of his pocket. What are we having? Story 111. When you ask, I can't think of my favorite, but I think of Niles ironing his pants. Story 112. The brain surgeon rocket scientist skit on the Mitchell and Webb look. Story 113. Nobody look. Nobody look. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Jim Leahy, dressed as Santa Claus, comes down the hallway with an old, dirty grocery bag hanging from his ears, and then falls backward into the fridge Trailer Park Boys. These are the two funniest moments in television history, in my opinion. I've never laughed so hard as the first time I saw each of these. Story 114. Cheers. When Sam asks Norm, how's it going, Norm? Norm replies, it's a dog-eat-dog world, and I'm wearing milk bone underwear. Story 115. The story of the Everest sketch from Mr. Show leaves me in tears every time. In my opinion, it is the best physical comedy performance of all time. Story 116. News Radio parroted the final scene of St. Elsewhere, which is probably my all-time favorite moment in a drama show. Story 117. There is various content from Saturday Night Live, but I could never choose one over another. So it might be Little Britain or Andy's Smuff outfit. It gets me every time. Story 118. Sammy Davis Jr. gives a big kiss on Archie Bunker's cheek while having their picture taken. Perfect. Story 119. Leslie, I typed your symptoms into the system, and it indicates you could have network connectivity problems. Story 120. Mr. Blobby on the Big Fat Game Show, or if that isn't the correct answer to the question, Old Greg. Story 121. It is probably too late for this comment to catch attention, but I have to add Norm Macdonald's Carrot Top improv on Conan O'Brien. Story 122. In the very first episode of Joey, he gets into a taxi and forgets he has a layover in Dallas. When he finally arrives in Los Angeles, he looks at the sign and says, "Oh, thank goodness." Story 123. In a Seinfeld episode, Jerry pretends to wear glasses to avoid giving Lloyd Braun the impression that he is crazy. Jerry sports thick lens glasses while searching for George, which leads to comedic moments. Story 124. Frasier. How can we possibly use sex to get what we want? Sex is what we want. Story 125. Harry, your hands are freezing. Jim Carrey says this as he is being strangled by Harry. Story 126. In the office, during the fire drill, Dwight is shouting instructions to stay calm while Michael runs out. It's quite humorous. Story 127. The Carol Burnett Show featured her as Scarlett O'Hara from Gone with the Wind, where she famously made a dress out of curtains. Story 128. There were a couple of episodes of Fawlty Towers where I was gasping for breath as the jokes kept coming. The racial slurs on the Jeffersons and Sanford and Son were shocking. The waxing episode of Mrs. Brown's Boys was memorable. Story 129. Are you kidding me? I think you're going to die. Charlie in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia says this when the gang experiences alcohol withdrawal in the bathroom, and they all believe it's some kind of flu. The way he delivers that line makes me laugh every time. Story 130. Probably the first half of this piece from Sebastian Maniscalco is for the demons, you know? You don't have that in your family? That gets me every time. Story 131. It's a toss-up, all from Tim and Eric. The Cinco urinal shower, getting the most out of your child clown rental. Or, this is number 1, the end of the Little Dancin' Man, where little Ted Danson yanks on Peter Cetera's ear, and Peter Cetera makes a strange, sudden, angry, poorly superimposed CGI grimace. That brief 2-second moment is the funniest part ever. Story 132. Shane Gillis discusses the strange noises men make in bed in their partner's ear, which has stuck in my mind and made me self-conscious. Story 133. I really liked what the whitest kids you know did with the grapist and the water cooler joke. I also enjoyed many of the skits from In Living Color. Mad TV had some good ones too. I don't think I've ever laughed hard at anything from Saturday Night Live. Story 134. The Martin Luther King Day fake movie trailer from 30 Rock. Tomorrow is Martin Luther King Day, and neither of us has dates? Too bad we are just platonic friends. Asterisk, some things are bigger than black and white. Asterisk. Sounds like you had a dream. Starring John Krasinski, Liam Neeson, Brad Pitt, George Clooney, the 1995 Quebec Nordiques. Story 135. The Dean's apology rap in Community starts out absurd, grows in intensity, becomes insane, and then deflates perfectly with the Dean crying. What makes it art is the pause before he turns and runs, as well as Britta trying with all her might not to break. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.